If wokeness is a religion, trans women is the god we are all supposed to submit to. Drew Barrymore is kneeling in front of the patriarchy in drag, embodied by Dylan Mulvaney. Dylan Mulvaney is the woke Madonna that Hollywood and the media worships. And why do they worship him? Because Dylan is a white man who feels like a woman. He is the progressive representation of positive masculinity, a flamboyant man in drag. WoKKKistan women love to complain about toxic straight white men, but the moment these men put a dress on, they automatically get on their knees ready to suck their because they recognize in them the patriarchy. Like any religion, wokeness is misogynistic, but also, like every religion, this ideology needs women to exist and thrive. If you look at a Christian church, women are running the show. They sing, fundraise, fill up all the seats, hunt for new followers, and even provide sex for the preacher. Women are the backbone of any religious institution, and wokeness is no exception. WoKKKistan attracts women in its cult by stroking their ego and doing lip service. They would come up with empty words like Women International Day, Women Empowerment, Women is God, the future is female, we all need to be feminists, while at the same time being unable or unwilling to define the word woman. Then, as soon as this ideology gets momentum, it turns against its most fervent supporters because it was never about empowering women, only about power. Wokeness uses the likeness of women to strengthen the ideology and then seeks to destroy them. The woman is the blueprint, but not the destination. The destination has always been the man. WoKKKistan claims they want a gender-neutral society. The future is they, them, and non-binary. This is BS. The truth is, they want a womanless society. If we have a look at this picture, what do we see? We see a group of actors smiling for the camera. Even though women represent the majority in this picture, the man on the left makes this photo actressless, womanless. The word actor is generic. It applies both to men and women. The word actress is specific, as it only applies to a female actor. So in the presence of a man, actresses lose their specificity and are conflated with the actors. The English language has a male bias, where words are automatically and unconsciously associated with men. And the words they, them, non-binary are no exception. When award shows decide to make categories genderless, what category disappears? The female category, and everyone knows that. And that's why Adele felt the need to make that statement.
I understand why the name of this award has changed, but I really love being a woman and being a female artist. I do.
Gender neutral is a myth because we live in a patriarchal society. When you hear the word transphobia, you're automatically associated with discrimination against trans women, i.e., men who identify as women. When you hear the word BLM, you associate it with black males murdered by the police. Women in these two examples are out of the picture. Another example of gender-neutral BS are the gender-neutral toilets at school. Who this policy is going to affect negatively? Girls. Why? Some girls feel shame to change their pad in the girls' toilet already. Now can you imagine doing that when a boy is in the cubicle next to you? Some girls even stop drinking fluid or hold their bladder to avoid using the toilets. Others also avoid the toilets over the fear of being sexually assaulted by creepy boys in there. Those school boards clearly implemented these changes with one group of children in mind: trans girls, i.e., boys who identify as girls, boys, males. If they ever had in mind the well-being of actual girls, they would have known it was a bad idea in the first place. Some schools also ban girls from wearing skirts to achieve a more gender-neutral uniform. Who doesn't have to change their uniforms? Boys. It even goes further than that. Do you remember that Canadian teacher, Kayla Lemieux, a transgender who is allowed to go to school with XXL fake breasts? That person doesn't have to follow the school dress code. On the other hand, women are sent home from work because their outfits are deemed distractive. What?
I'm getting sent home for my outfit. This time the HR girl approached me. I'm about to ask her.
I'm sorry, you still can't wear that. It's way too revealing and distracting.
It's distracting?
Very.
Both of them are supposedly women, right? So why one is discriminated against and the other one is given a pass? Because again, gender neutral only applies to women. In a so-called progressive society, men represent the norm, the standard women must achieve. And that's why when a man identifies as a woman, he can overdo it, to the point of being exhibitionist like Kayla Lemieux. He is considered brave and stunning, but when a woman is herself, she is seen as an attention. In WoKKKistan, women have to make the sacrifice, not men. And if they rebel against a misogynistic ideology and refuse to share their gender identity, their bathrooms, their awards, and their sports with men, amongst other things, they get banned from spaces that were supposedly created for them. The idea is that womanhood is for transgenders a medium of expression, and women are only there to comfort trans women in their delusion. WoKKKistan is increasingly trying to alienate women from their own gender, because ultimately this ideology believes that a man is better at being a woman than actual women. Why this type of unfairness goes unaddressed by women? Because women hate women. When June kneeled for Dylan, she said the person she dislikes the most is herself.
Do you want to know, ironically, who dislikes me the most sometimes?
Who?
Myself.
Oh, me too.
A lot of women, if not most, hate themselves and are male identified. A lot of women wish they were men. Drew probably sees in Dylan the version of herself she wishes she was. A woman without all the tribulation that comes with womanhood. A woman with all the fun and none of the burden. Have you noticed the number of women who love to go on public platforms to call out white men as being toxic and dangerous? What happens next? They either come out as white men themselves or have a white man in their bed. They are obsessed with white men and want to be them. For some, them is close enough. For others, butchering their breasts and taking hormones is a necessary path to straight white manism. In a patriarchy, women submit and follow men to increase the chances of survival. And in this modern patriarchy, women are following the lead of men in drag not to be cancelled.
What is a woman?
A woman is anyone who wants to identify as one.
A cat is a cat because they are a cat.
Like...
This isn't a gotcha. It's just a genuine question.
I didn't have anything to say yet.
But what is a woman?
A person?
No, but what is the definition of what is a woman?
I don't know. I'm confused now.
I understand what your argument is. If I come out and I say a woman is someone who was born biologically a woman, I understand that that's where you're coming from. And I agree everyone is entitled to their own opinion, but I personally, as an individual, respect trans people. I respect trans women, so I'm not going to come on here and invalidate them by saying that. I understand completely where you're coming from, but just from my personal preference, I don't feel comfortable
answering the question. Okay, no, hey, that's okay. What about you?
Not really interested in having this conversation about trans people anymore because you seem very clearly committed to misunderstanding.
Well, I am trying to understand. I'm just trying to get people's perspective.
The problem when you follow a group of people you cannot criticize is that you start to develop resentment for the women who dare criticizing them. The bigger threat to a captive woman is a free one. The witch hunt of J.K. Rowling and more recently of a Muslim TikTok comedian were led primarily by women who were defending the patriarchy in drag. Because when you are male identified, you also identify with the misogyny. These WoKKKistan women were nowhere to be found when transgenders were sexually assaulting women in toilets, changing rooms, and prisons. But these same WoKKKistan women viciously attack and threaten women who stand up for themselves and seek to protect children from woke insanity. WoKKKistan women don't even try going off on Matt Walsh's door. They moonwalk all the way to the front door. They talk a good game about toxic masculinity when actually they are the enforcers of toxic masculinity. When transgenders get our awards, our rights, and access to our safe spaces, do you know what women get in exchange? We get their crimes. Half of the trans women in prison were convicted for sex offenses. And lawmakers have the nerve to say that transgender women exhibit a male-type pattern of criminality. No shit, Sherlock. Maybe because they were born men. Did they ever consider that, or is it too politically incorrect to say that? These woke-wacko politicians are trying to tie women to hardcore, violent crimes that men are notoriously known to commit, like rape. While these transgenders are associated with tampon, lipstick, and dresses. The trade is not fair, can we agree on that? But the trade is never fair in a patriarchal society. Women always get the shorter side of the dress. For Dylan Mulvaney, womanhood is like going to the zoo or to a developing country as an expat with all the perks that comes with it. Being treated like royalty and being offered everything on a gold plate, including womanhood. Dylan knows his worth. He is a white man, and this alone will always give him the upper hand. Dylan gets brand deals, media attention, awards, and a fan club. Trans women are the modern conquistadors. After dominating the whole world, the new flex of men is to dominate women's spaces. If the future is female, the patriarchy will have to become a woman in order to stay relevant. Have you heard about the Trojan horse? Well, today patriarchy is using a trans horse to divide women and conquer their spaces. The end goal has always been to maintain power. This is the beauty with patriarchy. It's like herpes. Once it's there, it never goes away. It simply mutates, and today it has taken the form of a trans woman. This reminds me of a Netflix movie called Behind Her Eyes. No spoiler, but it's about a white man who uses women to stay in control. For those of you who watched the movie, you understand what I mean, I think. The movie is in 4 episodes and the ending is just crazy, so I strongly advise you to watch it. And I think this movie is a perfect analogy for women's status under current woke oppression. The racists of yesterday rebranded to blend in society. They are no longer racially superior, but simply morally superior. If you are white and publicly refer to yourself as racially superior, you'll get cancelled. But if you are publicly seen at a BLM protest, or at an All Refugees Welcome demonstration, or seen advocating for black male criminals, you get clout on social media. Because social activism is the new flex for white supremacy. The morally righteous educate black people on how to be black.
You heard about my ex-boyfriend, right? 50 Cent and his support of Donald Trump.
Yeah, what's going on between you? I saw your tweets and I go, wait, what's happening? Because you said he was your favorite ex-boyfriend and then what does he do? He's supporting Trump?
He says he doesn't want to pay 62% of taxes, which, by the way, isn't a plan of Joe Biden's. That's a lie. So he doesn't want to pay 62% of taxes because he doesn't want to go from being 50 cent to 20 cent. And I had to remind him that he was a black person, so he can't vote for Donald Trump, and that he shouldn't be influencing an entire swath of people who may listen to him because he's worried about his own personal pocketbook.
They rename the marginalized. Latino becomes Latinx. Women becomes menstruated person. And Black people become people of color. They see themselves like gods, or the Holy Trinity of wokeness. They are the attorney of minorities, also known as the allies. They are the jury, also known as the fact-checkers. And finally the judge, also known as the counselors. Wokeness doesn't care about minorities. It simply uses them to stay relevant and maintain power. The elite saw diversity creeping slowly into white society as a ticking bomb, and in order to survive the multicultural wave, they had to rebrand. Wokeness has become a tool white supremacy uses to survive in today's multicultural society, and also a structure that seeks to destroy other cultures. Think about it. You have been living a certain way for hundreds of years, and one day a group of people show up on your TV screen and tell you that from now on you are supposed to submit to their God, who is a trans woman, and speak a different language, which is political correctness, and identify as a victim or an oppressor because of your race, gender, or sexual preference. This small but powerful group of people want you to abandon your identity, your culture, your customs, and your religion to embrace theirs. Just like in the good old days. Same tactics, same people, different time. Woke supremacy is white supremacy. White supremacists are today embodied by the Hollywood elite, the politicians, big tech, big businesses, and your priggish vegan leather shoes enthusiast who welcomes refugees but not in the backyards. The biggest hoax of WoKKKistan is to make you believe that they hated white men. White men ain't going nowhere. When there is a conversation about women, it is taken over by trans women. They are everywhere, from beauty contests to women award shows and women health. Women's representation is saturated with men in drag. When you hear the word he, you think of a man. Now when you hear the word she, WoKKKistan also wants you to think of a man. And that's why WoKKKistani people refuse to define the word woman. They want the word to refer to a human adult male. They want to make everything about white men. Even the people you are supposed to dislike are white men. You don't even get to choose. When you think about educating children, you see white men in drag reading them stories, dancing in front of them, and occasionally showing them a dildo. White men are the face of the vaccine, LGBT, BLM, women's rights, and even tampon. And thanks to two white men tech giants, like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, they are omnipresent. The Quaker acquired Aunt Jemima, which is not really progressive if you want my opinion, and cancelled her and changed her name to Pearl in the name of racial equality. Uncle Ben's was also rebranded Ben's, and I recently heard that women were rebranded as men. The white Quaker is the only character in the food industry who didn't have to conform to woke guidelines, although he is religious. Not even in a supermarket, Black people are safe from the wokalypse. Street names aren't safe either from WoKKKistan. Recently in Tottenham, England, the council decided to change the name of a street from Black Boy Lane to La Rose Lane because they deemed the name racist. Did they ask the 24% Black people who live in Tottenham if they were okay with the change? No. Why? Because they don't give a damn about their opinion. This is white supremacy for you. There is only one way, and it's the white way. Yes, because White Street is still there. It doesn't have to be renamed. Wokeness is a tool white supremacy is using to exist and thrive in a multicultural society. In this ideology, white men are still at the center of attention, and modern women can worship men while giving the appearance that they are only showing sisterhood. Some of these progressive women don't want independence, freedom, living life on their own terms, etc. They want to be led by someone who looks like them without being them, a patriarchy in drag. WoKKKistan has a patriarchy in drag, and BlaKKKistan has a patriarchy in SAG. But both ideologies are two sides of the same coin. They are extremely abusive to women, and both have mammies on their sides enforcing oppression. I will never embrace either of these two ideologies, even if they brush their teeth. Black women like myself come from BlaKKKistan, a place where every nightmare comes true, where your first challenge as a black girl is to keep your hymen intact as long as possible. BlaKKKistan is a place where women have no right, not even the right to stay alive. A place where the majority of the men are undiagnosed sociopath and psychopath. A place where the same men play God with your life, but when karma hit the durag, they are rewarded with millions of dollars in settlement. BlaKKKistan is ironically anti-black and also anti-women. Both of these cultures are dysfunctional and misogynistic. And they love to use black women to promote their degeneracy. WoKKKistan expects black women to kneel in front of violent pieces of shit who specialize in terrorizing women like St. Floyd, and then you stay kneeling for white dude parading in dress. They basically want black women to kneel our way to misogynoir. And patriarchy are using mammies to keep other women in check. Listen, black women are the most murdered female demographic in America, and famous black women only speak up to denounce police brutality.
We are mourning the loss of so many, and I have to be honest, if things had gone differently this past week in Minneapolis, I might have traded in my heels for marching boots. Now, I know that a lot of you people at home want to reach for your remote when you feel like Hollywood is preaching to you, but as a mother of a black son, I know the fear that so many live with, and no amount of fame or fortune changes that. Okay?
They say nothing about Pookie brutality. These mammies let black women drop dead every 4 hours. Why? Because their allegiance is to the patriarchy. During slavery, white women knew the fate of black women on the plantation. The rape, the child abuse, the children taken away from the mothers. These whammies said nothing. Oftentimes even joined in the abuse. Why? Because their allegiance is to the patriarchy. So-called progressive women love to talk about toxic white men on every mainstream media and podcast. But when a degenerate dude who rebranded himself as Jessica Yaniv tried to force beauticians to shave his balls, weaponizing the court system and making these women go bankrupt, I didn't hear any of these modern, progressive, feminist women raising their voices against this predator. They remain silent. Why? Because their allegiance is to the patriarchy, a modern patriarchy in drag. Do you know why mammies and whammies defend their dysfunctional patriarchy? Because that patriarchy came from their vaginas. I only have one allegiance, and it is to myself, no one else. Thanks for listening.